Good morning, everyone, and welcome you all to the new episode of Live with Nisha. And I'm pretty excited to come to you all and bring our wonderful guest to speak more about, the employer branding, of course, right? And I must say, I've been following this company and particularly our guest for today for quite a long, and it's been interesting personally for me to watch them bring in employer branding or employee value proposition to life. So the past 1 month, I would say it's been a pleasure. So stay tuned, and I'm gonna bring our wonderful guest to our screen.
Good morning or
Good
afternoon
morning,
for you.
Kumari. I
How
know.
are
Good
you?
morning. Afternoon and wherever you are, right?
Yes.
Kumari, thank you so much for being here with me today, and it's a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you for having me. Any opportunity that I get to talk about Harmon and what we're doing here, our exciting new employee value proposition and employer brand is a great opportunity. So thank you for the platform. We appreciate it.
Of course, I've been looking forward to connecting with you, and of course, I've been looking forward to talking to you. And then I thought, okay, we have this LinkedIn Live, so why don't we bring you in so that way our audience can also learn more about the great work that you guys do over at Harmon International. So I must say personally, the last 1 month have been tremendous learning experience for me to closely stalk you guys. And follow the hashtag Harmon Connects Me to see how you all bring that employee value proposition or the EVP to life. So before we talk Harmon International and that you are working on EVP, please give us our audience a little bit glimpse about you, your life, and what you do.
Yeah, so I joined Harmon almost 2.5 years ago. I believe it was the summer of 2017. And prior to joining Harmon, I worked at ADP and I worked in the RPO division, so recruiting process outsource. And I managed the hiring process for a global OEM. And so that was my kind of first real exposure and experience with employer branding and what it should look and feel like. And so that got my feet wet with the employer branding side of things. I had been in talent acquisition, been in recruiting for several years, but really started to understand what employer branding is and what an EVP is when I started my role with ADP. So I left ADP again, like I said, 2 years ago, joined Harmon, and one of the first projects that we worked on was just our starting to decide what we wanted to do around our employee value proposition and our employer brand. So it was kind of magical timing in that I was able to join an organization right at a pivotal time when we had just recently been acquired by Samsung, and so we were trying to figure out how does the Samsung piece tie into who we are as an organization. And so we wanted to take some time to first figure out if that acquisition was going to impact how we went to market. And we quickly realized that it did not. It was more of leveraging the synergies. And so we were still going to function as a wholly owned subsidiary of Samsung. And it allowed us to then start to create our vision for how we were going to brand ourselves as an employer.
So take us into the whole journey of creating that employee value proposition and the messaging. Tell our audience what that messaging is all about, and how did you come up with that messaging?
Yeah, we had embarked on this effort several times in the past. Prior teams had worked internally to create an EVP. So there was a lot of research that we had to start with, which was good because we weren't starting from scratch. So myself and the team, we took the existing research and then looked at it and then said, let's go through and decide how much of this still resonates with us kind of post Samsung. And we did. We went through it, and it was a great starting point for us. From there, we decided that we wanted to make sure that we could absolutely execute. And we're a global company. We're in over 30 countries. We have, 30,000 employees. And so we knew that this would be a complex exercise. And so what was really important for us to do was to make sure that we could execute. So we decided early on that we wanted to partner with an agency, and we did. We worked with TMP for the creation of our EVP and employer brand, and then also our career site as well. So the beginning of our journey, we validated some of the data that was prior to all of the research that TMP came in and did. but we did again leverage that historical data, and we were able to use that to propel us. And we just really dug in and listened to what our employees were saying. That's how we started.
So you guys did a survey to understand the the employees' feedback on. Oh, okay, sounds great. Sounds great.
We did global surveys, and we also did global focus groups as well.
So when it comes to launching an EVP, that's one of the things that employers out there look out for, right? And especially such a large organization like yours, with who operate in 30 different countries, 30 different culture, different people, different location, different geography. So how do you make sure that everybody has that real essence of what do you want to communicate to your employees internally and externally to the talent?
That's a really good question. And it's one of those things that we're still working through, because we have our high level EVP. We have exactly what we believe is what resonates with all of our people globally. But we're starting to embark on a kind of phase 2 journey, which is to take elements of that EVP and localize and tweak it further to the cultures to make sure that it absolutely resonates. There might be, for example, a country, let's call it China, where it's really important for individuals in China. They like to work for global companies. And so part of our EVP is just the fact that we're extremely global. And so we in those markets might play up that element of our EVP more than we would in other markets. So what we did was we found the commonalities globally, and that became our EVP. And that became the promise. If you work for Harman, you're guaranteed to have challenging work that's going to make you the best version of you that you can be. And so there's elements that of our culture that are consistent no matter what country you're sitting in. And
so
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's less for us about our, traditional benefits. We do talk about those offerings, but it's more about what is the culture really like? What is it like to work at Harman? What is it going to feel like? And we really want people to select in and opt out if it's not the organization for them.
Sounds great. So when it comes to, I want to go back to that culture piece one more time to understand, we have that real holistic view of what it is like to work at Harman International. But at the same time, do you tweak your messaging in a way to attract a different talent pool from different countries? Or how does that part of challenge you guys are solving at Harman International?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. It's actually something that we're working through now. So we've got our EVP, and phase 2 is starting to build out what our social strategy will be. So what is our strategy around how we will engage socially? So obviously we have our employees that are posting, which is an element of our strategy. But really, what other components will we incorporate to ensure that the engagement continues and is consistent? The biggest, I would say, component of our strategy now is just making sure that we get the messages about who Harman is out to a broad audience, and making sure that when someone searches our hashtag, they get a really good feel for what our culture is like. Also, phase 2 is starting to build out that holistic recruiting strategy. So, kind of at the top of the organization, what are the components that, whether you're sitting in China, whether you're sitting in India, whether you're sitting in Japan, wherever, we're going to be looking for X, Y, and Z talent, and this is how we attract them. So that's what we're working through now, is kind of laying that broad global strategy. And then locally, they will have strategies that feed into that. But we know for Harman, wherever we're sitting in the world, we're always going to be looking for technical talent, ideally software engineering. And another dimension is we're looking for female technical talent. So that's consistent globally. So the good thing is that we've got some really very defined marching orders around what type of talent we want. It's just a matter of creating the recruiting strategy to make sure we can attract that talent. And that's what we're doing.
Thanks for sharing that. And I want to cover phase 1 right now. You launched the EVP globally. Now you are activating it with the help of your employees. And I'm blown away with all the feeds that's coming through the hashtag Harman Connects Me. So help us understand how does that work goes into bringing your employees to the fold and having them, take the ownership, having them celebrate Harman Connects Me.
Well, one of the things that we did was in 14 countries, we had local activities activating the EVP. So as I mentioned, we have facilities in over 30, but we actually had launch activities in 14 countries where we encourage the employees to do just what you described, which is share the message of Harmon and to do so on the social platforms. Right now, China is actually launching. And so, because they were a bit staggered due to business needs and things like that. So, China's launching now. They're all over WeChat, all over LinkedIn. And so, they're having their own kind of gamification contests and selfie contests for people to
Mhm.
just encourage them to engage. And the purpose of that really is just so that people can see exactly what our culture is like. That's the goal, right? And it's also to inspire and to spark kind of just that little fun factor about who we are. We are, I mean, we're not trying to be another organization. We're just trying to authentically be who we are.
So that way anybody who is watching Harmon Connects Me and they can relate to who you are as an organization can join you guys. That's a
Exactly.
great profound statement right there. So when using employees as an ambassadors or employee ambassador program, right? Do you have executive leadership coming in? How would you build that momentum and keep it going on?
Yeah.
How does that work goes on?
So when we localized at our in our different countries, we had executive presentations that were done. So the launch activities consisted of senior leadership presenting, and we helped the local countries create talking points, things like that. But we
Mhm.
included leadership in those activations. It wasn't just here's a party, here's some ice cream, and here's an EVP. It
Mhm.
was the local leadership talking to the employees about our EVP and about our pillars and about how it correlates to them and their career. So we really took a proactive um, stance in making sure that our leadership was involved. When we
Mhm.
initially rolled out, we also did training for our leaders. So we did EVP workshops for all of talent acquisition, all of HR, and then all people managers. So we that was close to 4,000 people that we were targeting to ensure that they clearly understood what our employee value proposition is. When you think about going forward and how we keep the momentum up, that's part of the strategic element that we're working through now, which is building out a calendar so that we understand at what points do we want to kind of not force engagement, but strongly encourage engagement. And we'll
Mhm.
use, even the national calendar, right? We'll look at days like Women's Day and, things like that, breast cancer awareness, whatever it is, National Engineers Day, things like that, to just encourage our employees to continue to be engaged with sharing the stories of Harmon.
Thank you for sharing that. One comment that we received on LinkedIn from Ranjit KK saying building an EVP globally is highly challenging and happy to find that Harman has done that wonderfully. Listening to the employees is prime. So when it comes to listening to the employees, I mean, we utilize, let's say, for example, Glassdoor, and of course our employee engagement survey. And the individual surveys that we do in order to launch particular projects.
Yeah.
So going back to listening to that employees and understanding their what it is like to be them, right?
Yeah.
Who live the Harmon Connects Me,
Yeah.
or who live the Harmon life, if you will. What's your strategy, or what your team is doing in order
Yeah.
to understand you guys are closely listening, and if there is that you guys need to do, and how do you go about it?
Yeah, I mean, these are really, really good points. I will say that the biggest thing that we did was at the beginning, really made sure we had a clear understanding of what our employees felt about the organization.
Mhm.
I don't think you can stop there. If you just make an EVP around what your employees feel about the culture and the environment, then you'll fall flat because there has to be a component that is aspirational. So our EVP, I would say, is probably 25-30% aspirational, where we're not fully there in the particular area, but it's where we want to be. And so as much as we're focused on making sure that our employees, that it resonates with our employees, we also want some stretch in there too, so that we can grow into the organization that we really and truly want to be. As far as the social engagement piece of it, our employees were actually already doing that piece. So they had always been sharing, probably not to the degree that employees are sharing now, but they had already been sharing. I mean, if our CEO is, traveling around the world, there would be pictures shared with him and the employees. So we were we're kind of a very social culture because we're so global. You have areas like Mexico and again India and China where they really leverage social media to get the information out about their culture.
Hey, Kumari, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can see you now.
Oh, we have lightning and thunder going on outside, so I'm pretty sure this is because of the,
Oh boy.
nature's way of responding back to how I'm going to have a great day, right? But
All right, right. That's a positive way of thinking about it.
I'm glad we are back, and it looks like we're still live on air, so which is good. So going back to what we were talking about, listening to the employees' um, comments and employees' response
Yeah.
the EVP and the whole launch of Harman Connects Me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been really fantastic. I told my leader, Sandra, who I report to, it was just cool seeing that we could align globally. It's hard to get a lot of people to do anything, right? And so you're talking about several countries all have very different cultures, all have different leadership. And so trying to get everyone to come together and globally align was probably my biggest concern in all of this. And I feel like it went so well. I don't think I would have ever dreamed that it would have gone as well as it did. It's been really positively received, and we're excited about keeping the momentum going. And so that's where I think efforts will fall flat if we don't build the strategy. And so that's what the team is really working through now is building out the strategy of how we continue to keep the engagement going.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Great. So, if there is any organization or any employer branding group out there who are yet to launch their EVP or who are working on creating their EVP, what's your advice to them?
I would definitely tell you to look at your website in tandem. So don't start an EVP employer branding effort without also taking into consideration that you'll probably need to address your career site. If you try to do it in tandem, it's a lot of work, and which is okay, but you want to make sure that you're allotting yourself the right amount of time. So if I look back and think about where we had, opportunities for improvement in our process, it was probably that. We started our career site effort in January,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, and our employer branding efforts started long before that. But we started our career site in January and launched on July 11th. So we really had 6 months to create a completely new career site. This was not a refresh. This was a complete overhaul, and it's a lot of work. And if you have a small, lean, nimble team, it is just a lot. So I would say make sure you allot yourself the appropriate amount of time and really have a strong project manager and project plan in place to keep up with your deliverables.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great. And if you were to say I would say step-by-step process that our audience can, check the list, right?
Yeah.
To launch their EVP. Yes, we have to take care of our career site, and we have to take care of all the branding aspects that we have on all the sites that are connected to our career site. So that's something internally and externally, and of course the social media pages as well. Does it stop right there, or do you have any list in your schedule?
Yeah, I would say you have to align with your key stakeholders. If you don't do that and you do everything else, you will still likely fail. You have to loop in all of your key stakeholders and manage them through the entire process. And that's one of the things that we did, I feel like, well. We made sure our head of corporate communications was looped in. We made sure our our head of marketing was looped in. All of our divisional HR leadership was included. And so we aligned with our CEO, with our CHRO. We aligned with any and everyone that we knew we needed to align with. We made sure we did that and managed that through the process. Even the detail of how much do we need to link back to Samsung with our EVP. That was kind of the elephant in the room for a while, and we had to get answers to that question, or we knew we couldn't go further in the process. So I feel like our team did a really good job of managing our key stakeholders. And that is something that I think gets missed a lot of times in these efforts, because what you hear a lot about with employer branding and career site work is that you end up reworking or having to go back and fix or having to redo. And that's because somewhere along the line, a key stakeholder was not kept in the loop.
So in order to keep them in the loop, tell us a little bit more towards, the project management. Did you do agile methodology or waterfall, and how do you make sure you are keeping up with, that communication piece with everybody? And did you guys use any tools that you would like to share it with our audience?
Well, we did have a project plan, and we initially started the project out with a project manager who ended up transitioning to a different role partially through the project. But we did have a really good project plan that our team was able to maintain. But outside of the project plan itself, we had a fantastic steering committee. So we had a steering committee that included all of the executives that I kind of listed before, and made sure that those individuals were frequently kept in the loop. Beyond our steering committee, we had work stream teams. So we had individuals that were maybe closer to the division or closer to the business, but we knew we had to ensure that they were kept in the loop. So they weren't necessarily your senior leaders on the work stream, because they were folks that were more responsible for helping us activate, but they absolutely were critical to the success of the project and making sure that they were kept in the loop. So, obviously a project plan is critical. Obviously a project plan is important, but more importantly is making sure that your steering committee and your work stream teams are kept in the loop consistently. And you develop that, and you know clearly who are going to be your detractors and who are going to be your promoters in your project, so that you can adjust and make sure that you're giving them the right information so that you can make sure everyone is on board with your project.
So while talking about that, did you have anybody, internally or externally, who were a little skeptical, who were a little, not so sure before we go live? We need all the things, we need to make sure that it is correct before we go live, right? Did you have any challenges at the very beginning getting the buy-in from any of your stakeholders? And if so, how did you tackle that?
I would say no. Our chief HR officer, this was a really important initiative to him. So which hugely helped, because that starts to lay the foundation, and he's kind of clearing the way for us. So that hugely helped. I don't think there was any one person in particular that was an obstacle for us. I would say, but that's also because we really early on kept people informed and looped in. At some organizations, this is an effort that corporate communications manages, or marketing. It happens to fall within human resources here at Harman, our employer branding team. But we're smart enough to know that what we do is slightly infringing on your corporate communication space. And so we knew it was important to partner with them and to make sure that we had respect for what they do and for their craft. And we kept them in the loop about what we were trying to do. And we used them they were advisors to us, because if I'm really transparent, the level of knowledge that I have about doing what we've been able to do was not it was not at all to the degree of what, our corporate communications team does, right? So and my team, we were kind of learning along the way, and we were able to do so in a way that was not painful to the organization, right? Because we were successful. But if I'm really transparent, we were learning as we were going, and we had to do what was right for Harman. So you can do textbook, right, and do what people tell you to do with an employer brand and an EVP, or you can tailor it to the culture of your organization and make sure that what you're doing is going to be successful where you work. So I think what we did right was we made sure that the people that were important to our project were just really kept in the loop, and we used them as advisors. They were hugely helpful along the way.
Great. Well, this is a great story to hear, because one of the things that I've seen when it comes to employer branding, even if it is the one single shop, or even if just collaborating with, with your team who has a handful of team, right?
Yeah,
But this project helped us expand the spectrum of human resources or talent
it
acquisition.
does.
And we'll get to work with marketing and communications and some of the cool stuff that they're doing, and we can incorporate that to the work that we are doing, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, how would you bring in the engineer team who can help you do what you do, and if so, what are your thoughts and what are your advice to the talent acquisition professionals out there? Okay, let's get outside your comfort zone,
Yeah.
approach cross-functionally and get people involved, because this is for the whole organization, not just a talent acquisition project.
That's a really good question. So I think if I'm hearing you correctly, you're asking how do I encourage my colleagues to step outside of TA and partner across the aisle with their communications and marketing teams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would say it's imperative because they are the experts at marketing, right? So whether you're marketing a product or you're marketing an organization, they understand what it takes to do that. And so we understand the people side, right? So we understand the people element, we understand what is attracting talent to the organization. So I think it's imperative that if you couple the two, that with the folks that understand how to market and the people that understand what it takes to work at the company, you have the perfect complement. So what I encourage is for it to not be an us versus them, and for it to always feel highly collaborative and know that both sides are bringing value to the equation. And I think what happens is it feels very adversarial sometimes, and it doesn't have to be. It's just we both bring different strengths to the table, and what we know in our perception and our viewpoint as HR and talent acquisition folks is a little bit different than what marketing or communications will bring, but it's the perfect blend, when you're talking about trying to market the organization.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that. And my next question would be towards the women out there, because you have been so successful in your role in and being a director of a global company, operates in 30 different countries, and leading the entire a global talent acquisition and employer branding team. How did you get to the role that you are in right now, and what's your success mantra?
Hmm. I would say, boy, that's a tough one. When I was in my last role with ADP, I always think back to that because if someone had called me about the job that I had, I would have never thought I could have done it. Right. I mean, in the role that I was in, we were hiring, globally, and I had responsibility over North America, but it was 10,000 people hiring every year. And so I think back to that, and if I isolate that situation and say, you know, it absolutely contributes to who I am today. And it's because that showed me how to believe in myself, because there were times that people didn't believe in me. And I had to quickly learn that if I don't believe in myself, if I don't have the confidence, if I don't believe that I can do this and actually execute, then why should anyone else believe it? And I then quickly realized then you can have the confidence, but you have to have something behind it to back it up. And so I guess I kind of live my life by executing. I feel like my work will speak for itself. And I've been consistent, regardless of the organization. I've been consistent with, if you tell me exactly, what the deliverable is, I'm going to deliver that and then give you some extra too, right? So it's not about just meeting, it's about hopefully exceeding as well. And I pride myself on being able to go into complex situations and be able to make sense of it and be able to thrive. Harmon is extremely matrixed, extremely. And if I'm honest, the thing that probably was the most complicated for me when I started at Harmon was, how do I navigate this very matrix environment?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've been able to do so successfully. But if I think about what contributes to my success, it's just my ability to know what my skill set is and know that I can deliver that consistently every single time.
Well, this is so great and profound statement for all the, young professionals out there to kind of learn from you, to, work towards their aspirations, right? Work towards
Yeah.
where they want it to be in their career. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I cannot, end the broadcast without giving a huge shout out to your team, the people who do the great work of making the magic happen, right? And of course, it's under your leadership. So tell our audience a little bit about how is your team structure like,
Yeah.
and who is behind who.
You are absolutely right. I will be completely 100% honest, which is honest the only way I know how to be, but it was absolutely the team effort. We would not, I would not have personally been able to do this by myself. We have Cheyenne Foreign, who has a background in communications and also employer branding at her former company. And so she brought over to Harmon the expertise. She joined us about, I would say, maybe a year and a half ago. And so she brought over to our organization a lot of expertise that we were able to leverage and be successful in our project. Cheyenne's leader is Daryl, and Daryl Ramey and I work really closely together just to make sure that everything is aligned and all the pieces to the puzzle are there. We had a very small team, and I've just kind of named the U.S. components, but I have a peer that sits in Europe, Marcus Burnt, who's responsible for managing all of the all of the European operations, and we just all worked fantastic together. And I really personally could not have done any of this alone. It was the work of all of our team that made the effort successful. And then recently we have Juliana, who joined our team, and she reports into Marcus and sits in Europe as well. And between Juliana and Cheyenne, they are now our global employer branding leads. So we have a structure in place that allows those two at the top, and then we have regional brand leads that help to support the employer branding efforts around the globe. And that helps to keep the brand intact. You can create something, but if you don't have a governance in place, you're back to kind of square one, because it'll slowly dissolve, and you won't have the guidelines and the governance that's necessary unless you create it. So that's kind of an overview of how the team is structured and how we were able to be successful. We have a very, very small team, as I mentioned, and I report into our head of talent management globally, and she was fantastic. I mean, she allowed us to do our thing, which for me is kind of critical, because we were trying to do what we were doing fast. And so you can't be fast and bureaucratic. Just doesn't go together, right? So you've got to be, if you want someone to move fast or a group to move fast, you have to be able to block and tackle and move out of the way all of the obstacles. And so between our chief HR officer, John Stacy, and Sandra Martinez, they handled all of that for us, and we were able to just move quickly, and it's been great. So lots of work to do. I don't want to paint the picture that we're done. We have a lot of work still to do, but we've accomplished a lot in a short amount of time.
And it's an ongoing process. And
it is.
Kumari, you talked about phase one, and you talked about strategizing around phase two as well. So that's something that we as an external folks can look out and look forward to. So definitely we will stay tuned to what you guys are doing at Harmon International in terms of employer branding, and phase two is always exciting, and look forward to learning more about it. So last but not least, but to our audience, if you can share more about where they can connect with you, where they can check out the next project that you guys are doing at Harmon International, and where to find careers at Harmon International, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I didn't mention is that we did launch our career site, but we're not done. We actually have several other phases of our career site coming out. So what you see now is a portion of our career site, and actually the smallest piece. And when we roll out the next phases, it'll have global elements that speak to each of our regions, and so it'll be really exciting. So you can follow us we're on Instagram. I'm sorry, not Instagram. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook careers page. We also have our Harmon International corporate page that has a lot of information about who we are. And then our jobs.harmon.com career site has a lot of information about who we are as an organization.
And definitely follow the hashtag Harmon Connects Me, so that
absolutely
connect with anybody within the organization who can give you a little bit more insights into the questions that you are looking for. Definitely. So thank you, Kumari. Thank you so much again. I know that we have had several interruptions in between because of the lightning and thunder and heavy raining going I wasn't expecting this because until yesterday it was about 105, 106 outside, and glad to
wow.
have nice weather outside, but at the same time, not today, right?
So it'll be really humid and muggy, I'm sure then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure, you know what, we will have to do one more show. I'm looking forward to doing more and more shows with you without any technical interruptions, for sure, that I can, promise you.
Absolutely. Anytime. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Kumari. I really appreciate you being here with us today. And to our audience, stay tuned. Connect with Harman. Connects me on any of the social media platforms for you to get connected with Harman International and any of the talent acquisition or employees folks right there. And check them out. They are so wonderful. And stay tuned. I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kumari.